The Sultan wept at his grave, but it was the Sultan who sent him there. Topkapi Palace, Istanbul, March 1536. A man walks through candlelit corridors, unhurried, unafraid. He has walked these halls 1,000 times. He knows every shadow, every secret, every whispered name behind every door. He is the Grand Vizier of the most powerful empire on earth. He dines tonight with his oldest friend, his Sultan, his brother in all but blood. He does not know that he will not see morning. He does not know that the order has already been given. He does not know that the man smiling across the table from him has already decided. This is the story of Pargalu Ibrahim Pasha, the man who rose higher than any slave in Ottoman history, and the man who fell in a single silent night. He was not born into palaces. He was not born into power. Ibrahim came into this world sometime around 1493 in a small Greek fishing village called Parga, nestled on the Ionian coast of what is today northwestern Greece. His father was a sailor. His world was modest, simple, and for a brief time, free. But fate had other plans. As a young boy, Ibrahim was taken, captured or purchased, history does not tell us precisely which, and brought into the Ottoman world as a slave. He was transported to Manisa, a city in western Anatolia, where the sons of sultans were sent to govern and grow. It was there, in Manisa, that everything changed. Because Ibrahim was no ordinary boy. He possessed something that could not be bought or trained into a person. A mind of extraordinary sharpness, a hunger for knowledge, and a gift for language that was almost supernatural. By the time he reached adulthood, Ibrahim spoke Greek as his mother tongue. He spoke Italian, Persian, Serbian, and Turkish, fluently, elegantly, with the ease of a man born into each culture simultaneously. He played the violin in a way that moved men to silence. He read philosophy, poetry, history. European ambassadors who came expecting a barbarian court were stunned to find a man who could debate them in their own language, in their own idiom, with wit and precision. They gave him a nickname, Frank, the European, the one who did not fit the mold. And it was in Manisa, in the court of a young prince named Suleiman, that these two souls found each other. No one fully understands what passed between Suleiman and Ibrahim in those early years. History records facts, not feelings. But the facts themselves are extraordinary. They were close in age. They shared books, music, long conversations that stretched past midnight. Suleiman, a prince groomed for empire, found in Ibrahim something he could not find in courtiers or advisors: honesty. A friend who spoke without calculation, a companion who asked for nothing. And Ibrahim, a slave with no family, no homeland, no guarantee of tomorrow, found in Suleiman something equally rare: safety and belonging. Their bond deepened with every passing year in Manisa. And when Suleiman's father, the Yavuz Sultan Selim, known as Selim the Grim, died in 1520, Suleiman rode to Constantinople to claim his throne. He did not ride alone. Ibrahim rode beside him. In Constantinople, the new sultan wasted no time elevating his companion. Ibrahim was appointed Hasodabashi, chief of the privy chamber, one of the most intimate positions in the entire palace hierarchy. He was now beside the sultan at nearly every hour, trusted with his person, trusted with his life. But Ibrahim was not content to remain in the shadows of ceremony. He wanted to prove himself on the field. In 1521, Suleiman launched his campaign against Belgrade, the gateway to Europe, a fortress that had defied Ottoman armies twice before. Ibrahim rode to war, and Belgrade fell. The empire exhaled with triumph, and Ibrahim stood taller than before. The following year, 1522, came Rhodes, the island fortress of the Knights Hospitaller, that ancient thorn in the empire's side. Ibrahim participated in the siege with distinction. Rhodes surrendered, and by the time the army returned to Constantinople, Ibrahim Pasha held the highest military authorities in the empire. Then came the appointment that shocked every man in the imperial court. In 1523, in a move that broke all precedent, that defied every tradition of the Ottoman state, Sultan Suleiman removed the veteran Grand Vizier Piri Mehmed Pasha and replaced him with Ibrahim. Ibrahim Pasha, the Greek slave from Parga. Grand Vizier, he was simultaneously appointed Beylerbey of Rumelia, governor of all Ottoman territories in Europe. The combined weight of these two titles made him, in effect, the second ruler of the world's greatest empire. The court was stunned. Some were furious, some were afraid. And then, as if to seal his ascendancy in gold, came the wedding. Suleiman gave Ibrahim his own sister. Hatice Sultan, an Ottoman princess, was wed to the former slave in a ceremony of breathtaking magnificence. The celebrations lasted days. The gifts were legendary. The message to the empire was unmistakable. This man is untouchable. Power for Ibrahim Pasha was never an abstraction. It was something proven, on horseback, on the battlefield, in the war rooms and the diplomatic halls. Months after his wedding, he was dispatched to Egypt, where rebellion had destabilized the province. He arrived. He restored order. He returned victorious and carried with him the title of Beylerbey of Egypt as well. He now governed both the European and African hearts of the empire simultaneously. Then came Hungary. In 1526, Suleiman marched against the Kingdom of Hungary. At the Battle of Mohacs, one of the most decisive confrontations of the 16th century, the Hungarian army was shattered in less than 2 hours. Ibrahim Pasha was among the principal architects of that victory. His tactical coordination, his command of the Ottoman vanguard, his relentless push forward, were among the greatest factors in the triumph. Europe trembled. But Ibrahim was not finished. When rebellions erupted across Anatolia, threatening to fracture the empire from within, it was Ibrahim who was sent. He rode east, crushed the uprisings with iron discipline, and restored stability to the heartland. And then, turning west once more, he stood before the walls of Vienna. The year was 1529. The first siege of Vienna, the furthest western point the Ottoman Empire would ever reach. The siege ultimately failed to break the city's walls before winter closed in. But Ibrahim Pasha stood there, at the edge of empire, at the edge of what was possible. And that was, perhaps, the moment he began to believe there were no edges at all. By 1533, Ibrahim Pasha was negotiating the Treaty of Constantinople with the Habsburg ambassador, a diplomatic achievement of enormous consequence. Under this treaty, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V was to be considered equal in rank to the Ottoman Grand Vizier, not to the Sultan himself. Ibrahim had, quite literally, placed himself on the level of emperors. And it was during these negotiations, with foreign ambassadors hanging on his every word, with the empire watching, that Ibrahim Pasha spoke the words that would echo through history like a death sentence written in advance. He said, "It is I who govern this great state. Whatever I do remains done. All force is in my hands. I distribute offices, I determine provinces. What I give is given. What I refuse is refused. Even when the Sultan wishes to grant something, if I do not approve his decision, it does not happen. For war, peace, wealth, and power are all in my hands." In a room full of foreign diplomats, the Grand Vizier of the Ottoman Empire had just declared himself its true ruler. The Sultan heard every word. There was another force at work, one that operated not on battlefields, but in whispered conversations, in the folds of letters, in the long hours of the night. Sultan. Hurrem, born Roxolana, a slave girl from the Ruthenian lands, had done something no woman in Ottoman history had done before. She had made the Sultan love her, completely, irreversibly. She had broken centuries of tradition, becoming not merely a concubine but Suleiman's legal wife, his Haseki, his queen, and she had sons who needed a clear path to the throne. Ibrahim Pasha blocked that path, not merely by his position, but by his loyalty. His loyalty was to Shahzada Mustafa, Suleiman's firstborn son from another woman. If Mustafa inherited the empire, Hurrem's children would likely not survive. Hurrem understood this with perfect clarity. And Hurrem was not a woman who accepted defeat. She was patient, she was brilliant, and she was relentless. And then Ibrahim himself handed his enemies everything they needed. In 1534, Suleiman sent him east once more, this time to lead the Iraq campaign. Alone, without the Sultan. For the first time in Ottoman history, a Grand Vizier rode to war as the supreme commander of an imperial army, with no Sultan beside him. The trust this represented was extraordinary, and Ibrahim began to lose himself within it. He captured Tabriz, he swept through Mesopotamia, he achieved victory after victory, and with each triumph, the man who had once stood humbly beside his Sultan began to carry himself differently. In letters, in edicts, on official documents issued in the name of the campaign, he began signing himself Saraskar Sultan, Sultan of Commanders. The word Sultan, the word that belonged to one man and one man alone in the entire Ottoman universe, Ibrahim had taken it for himself. But it was not only the title. During the Iraq campaign, Ibrahim had men executed, men against whom the evidence was thin. He ordered the death of the chief treasurer, Iskender Çelebi, on charges that many considered questionable. Soldiers who had served faithfully were not spared his severity. And then came something that cut even deeper into the soul of the empire. Qurans, sent to Ibrahim as gifts of honor, were reportedly refused, turned away. In an empire where faith was the bedrock of legitimacy, this act spread through the ranks like a slow-burning fire. Meanwhile, word reached the Sultan of other things, that Ibrahim neglected his wife, Suleiman's own sister, Hatice Sultan, that certain acts of violence carried out during the campaign had been hidden from the imperial eye. In 1534, while Ibrahim was still deep in the east, a report was read aloud before the Venetian Senate. It stated, "Ibrahim's love for himself far exceeds his love for Sultan Suleiman. He wishes to be alone in governing the country. The Sultan is greatly displeased." The cold winds blowing between Ibrahim and Suleiman could now be felt by foreign powers, by ambassadors, by the world. The friendship that had once seemed eternal was cracking. The Iraq campaign ended. Ibrahim returned to Constantinople, still Grand Vizier, still powerful, still present. But the man who returned was walking into a different world than the one he had left. Hurrem had not been idle. The Sultan's ear belonged to her in the late hours, in the private chambers where no Grand Vizier could enter. She worked, she waited, she persisted. And at some point in the early weeks of 1536, Suleiman made his decision. The oath he had sworn as a young man, that he would never have Ibrahim executed during his own lifetime, had held for years. Whether it was Hurrem's influence, the weight of accumulated grievances, the arrogance of the title Sultan, the hidden crimes, the whispers of treason, or simply the slow death of a friendship consumed by power, something gave way. The night of the 14th to the 15th of Ramadan, 1536, Ibrahim Pasha was invited to the palace for dinner, as he had been countless times before. He came. He sat at the table with the man who had been his closest companion for nearly 2 decades. They ate. They spoke. Perhaps they laughed at something, some old memory from Manisa, some forgotten joke from a campaign long ago. But those who knew Ibrahim Pasha would later say that throughout that entire day, he had seemed unsettled, restless, as if something beneath the surface of his awareness was trying to reach him, some instinct, some shadow he could not name. He retired to his chambers within the palace. And in the deep silence of that night, in the hours when the city slept and the palace held its breath, the mutes came, the palace executioners, trained in silence, commissioned by the Sultan's own order. There was no trial. There was no reading of charges. There were no last words recorded by history. By the time morning light fell across the domes of Constantinople, Pargala Ibrahim Pasha was dead. He was approximately 43 years old. His body was removed quietly. His grave was hidden. His name was struck from official records, scrubbed from the history of a state he had helped build with his own hands. The portraits were taken down, the titles erased. The 20 years of victories, campaigns, diplomacy, and devotion buried beneath imperial silence. In the palace, no one dared speak his name. And Suleiman? Those closest to the Sultan in the weeks and months that followed would speak, carefully, quietly, of a man changed. A man who carried something heavy that no campaign could resolve and no victory could lift. A man who had made a promise to a young slave boy on the shores of Manisa, long before thrones and wars had made them into what they became. A promise he had broken. The most powerful man in the world, the man who kept every oath sworn to his empire, could not keep the only one that truly mattered. Today, in the Beyoğlu district of Istanbul, there is a grave. Modest, quiet, easy to walk past without noticing. It belongs to a Greek boy from a fishing village on the Adriatic, a boy who learned 5 languages, who played music that made men weep, who commanded armies, negotiated treaties, and governed an empire, all before the age of 43. A boy who was given everything, and a man who lost it all in a single night. The Sultan wept at his grave, and every tear was the confession he would never speak aloud.